Keith Simmons sat in his $3,000 suit like he owned the courthouse. He laughed with his top-shelf shark of a lawyer, Garrison
Your
Ford,
Honor,
and
the
tapped the
evidence
empty chair beside
clearly
his wife.
demonstrates.
"Look at that," he smirked. "Couldn't even afford a lawyer. Pathetic." Across the aisle, Grace sat alone in a plain gray dress she'd bought on sale years ago. No files, no assistant, just white knuckles wrapped together on the worn oak table. She stared at the judge's bench the way a passenger stares at an oncoming train. The air in courtroom 304 of the Manhattan Civil Courthouse smelled like floor wax and endings. For Keith, it smelled like victory. "All rise," the bailiff called. "The Honorable Judge Lawrence P. Henderson presiding." Henderson took the bench, steel-eyed and already irritated. "Be seated. Case number 24, NIV 91, Simmons versus Simmons. We're here on preliminary issues of asset division and spousal support." He glanced at the plaintiff's table. "Mr. Ford, prepared to proceed?" "Always, Your Honor," Garrison said smoothly. The judge's gaze shifted to Grace. He frowned. "Mrs. Simmons, you appear alone. Are you representing yourself?" Grace rose, voice thin but steady. "No, Your Honor. My attorney is on her way." Keith let out a loud theatrical snort. A couple of spectators turned to look. "Something funny, Mr. Simmons," the judge snapped. Garrison's hand clamped down on Keith's shoulder. "Apologies, Your Honor. My client is frustrated." "Control your client," Henderson warned. He turned back to Grace. "Court started 5 minutes ago. If counsel is not present—" "She's coming," Grace insisted. "Please, just a few more minutes." Keith leaned forward so his voice would carry. "Or maybe, Grace, when she saw your bank balance, she decided charity work wasn't her thing. Hard to hire a lawyer when your husband cut off all your cards this morning." "That's enough," the judge barked, gavel cracking. "One more outburst and I'll hold you in contempt." Keith straightened his tie, pretending to be chastened. "I'm only trying to be fair, Your Honor. My wife doesn't understand how complicated this is. I even offered her a generous settlement, 50 grand, and the Lexus. She refused. Now she has nothing. No job, no money, no lawyer." Garrison rose. "Your Honor, under Vargas v. State, we move to proceed with default on the asset division. Mrs. Simmons has had months to secure counsel. She has failed to do so." Judge Henderson sighed, clearly tempted. "Mrs. Barreau, Simmons, the court's time is not a game. If your attorney is not here, I'll have to treat you as self-represented. And given the forensic accounting involved, that would be BAM." The double doors at the back of the courtroom didn't open. They exploded inward. The sound hit the room like a gunshot. Every head turned. A woman stood in the doorway. She looked to be in her late 60s, but nothing about her was fragile. A tailored white suit hugged her frame. Her silver hair was cut in a razor-sharp bob. Dark sunglasses hid her eyes as 3 junior lawyers trailed behind her, each lugging a thick leather briefcase like they were carrying ammunition. She walked down the center aisle without hurry. Each heel click a countdown. Garrison Ford, the butcher of Broadway, went pale. His pen slipped from his hand and clattered to the table. "No," he whispered. "That can't be her." "Who is that?" Keith muttered. "Grace's mom." Then, scoffing, "Grace told me her mother's dead." The woman reached the defense table, removed her sunglasses, and fixed Keith with eyes the color of Arctic ice. "Sorry I'm late," she said, voice controlled and resonant, without a microphone. "I had to file a few motions with the Supreme Court regarding your finances, Mr. Simmons. Listing all your offshore accounts took longer than expected." Keith's smirk died on impact. Judge Henderson leaned forward. "Counselor, state your name for the record." She placed a gold-embossed card on the stenographer's desk. "Catherine Bennett, Senior Managing Partner at Bennett, Crown and Sterling, Washington, D.C. I'm admitted in New York, California, D.C., and before the International Court of Justice." She sat beside Grace. "I enter my appearance as counsel for the defendant." She paused, glanced at Grace with something softer than steel, then back at Keith. "And I am also her mother." The room sucked in a collective breath. Keith stared between them, stunned. You said your mother was gone." Grace finally met his eyes. Her voice no longer shook. I said she was gone from my life, Keith, not from the planet. Catherine flipped open her briefcase. Your motion for default is denied by reality, Mr. Ford, she said lightly. Now, about that ironclad prenup. She handed thick packets to the judge and opposing counsel. You'll find my daughter's affidavit describing the threats made the night she signed it specifically, that Mr. Simmons would cut off funds to her sick grandmother's nursing home and kill her cat. That's a lie, Keith exploded. And Exhibit C, Catherine continued unbothered, are the texts confirming those threats, retrieved from a cloud server my team recovered. Quite colorful language, Mr. Simmons. Garrison flipped pages frantically, color draining from his face. Your Honor, we haven't had time. An ambush? Catherine's laugh was soft and lethal. You tried to win by default against a woman you'd financially strangled. You don't get to talk about fairness. She stepped into the well of the court, hands resting lightly on the podium. Mr. Simmons, let's discuss your finances. You swore under oath that your net worth is $8 million. That's right, he snapped. The market's been bad. Catherine tilted her head. Interesting, because my forensic accountants, who usually track terrorist money, not mid-level egos, found $24 million routed through shell companies in the Caymans and Cyprus into something called Apex Ventures. She let that sink in. You forgot to list that in today's financial affidavit. Judge Henderson's face hardened. Mr. Simmons, if this is true. It isn't, Keith shouted, sweat beading. She's making this up. Catherine smiled, a shark baring teeth. Then you won't mind explaining the cold storage crypto wallet in safe deposit box 404 at the Grand Central branch of Chase, funded by a $2 million wire last March. Keith's jaw went slack. How did you— I'm Catherine Bennett, she said simply. Finding money is what I do. The judge's voice dropped to a growl. Mr. Simmons, did you hide those assets from your wife and from this court? Keith looked at Garrison for help. Garrison stared straight ahead, stone-faced. I exercised business judgment, Keith stammered. That money is mine. She never earned a cent. She just painted stupid pictures and fed stray cats. Why should she get half of my genius? The courtroom went silent. Let the record reflect, Catherine said calmly, that Mr. Parrapal Simmons just admitted the existence of concealed marital funds and his intent to deprive my client of her equitable share. No further questions for now. She turned away from him, then faced the judge. Your Honor, I call Sasha Miller. The doors opened again. A young woman in a navy dress walked in, arms wrapped around herself. She took the stand, eyes flickering nervously toward Keith. Sasha, Catherine's tone softened. What is your relationship to Mr. Simmons? I was his girlfriend, she said, for 2 years. I broke up with him this morning. Why this morning? Because Ms. Morning. Bennett showed me the messages he sent his other girlfriend, in Chicago. Her voice strengthened with anger. He told me his wife was trash, said he'd make her homeless just to watch her crawl back. He called this hearing sport. Grace covered her mouth, shoulders shaking. Garrison rose, then sat back down. No questions, Your Honor. Judge Henderson set his pen down and looked straight at Keith. In 20 years on this bench, he said quietly, I have rarely seen arrogance this malignant. He turned to Grace. Mrs. Simmons, this court failed you at the start of this hearing. It will not fail you again. His ruling came fast. All assets in the name of Keith Simmons, Apex Ventures, or any related entity are hereby frozen pending a full forensic audit. Mrs. Simmons is granted exclusive use of the Fifth Avenue penthouse and the Hamptons home. Mr. Simmons, you have 2 hours to vacate with personal clothing only. Remove anything else, and you will be jailed. Keith made a strangled sound. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm referring today's transcript to the district attorney for investigation of perjury, wire fraud, and any related offenses. And, Mr. Simmons, you will pay 100% of Mrs. Simmons's legal fees. Given Ms. Bennett's rate, that alone should keep you humble. His gavel cracked. Court is adjourned. The room erupted into whispers. Keith slumped, staring at the wreckage of his own arrogance. His lawyer was already inching his chair away. Grace stood taller than she had in years, Outside, on the courthouse steps, the sun fell brand new on her skin. She and Catherine were halfway down when a black sedan slid to the curb. The rear window rolled down to reveal a man with silver hair and a face carved in stone. "Hello, Catherine," he said. "Grace." Grace's stomach dropped. "Dad?" William Bennett stepped out, holding a folder. "I heard the Iron Gavel was back in town," he said dryly. "Impressive show in there. Unfortunately, we have a problem." He held up the paper. "6 months ago, Keith borrowed $2 million from my firm. Put the Fifth Avenue place up as collateral. He defaulted yesterday. The apartment is mine." Grace felt the world tilt. "You? What?" "You knew what he was doing to me." "It was business," William said, but guilt flickered in his eyes. "I didn't know about the fraud. Either way, legally." Catherine snatched the document. Her eyes flicked over the text. Then she actually chuckled. "Oh, William," she said, "you really should have read the county records." She pulled a blue folder from her own briefcase. "In 2018, when Grace was pregnant, we moved the penthouse into a family trust for tax protection. Any use of the property as collateral requires signatures from both beneficiaries." She tapped the loan. "This one has Keith's and a forgery of Grace's." William's jaw clenched. "He forged her name, which makes your collateral worthless and this contract void," Catherine said sweetly. "You're welcome to chase Keith for your money, but if you try to touch my daughter's home, I will bury Ironclad Capital in litigation so deep your great-grandchildren will still be paying my invoices." Silence stretched between them. Finally, William exhaled. "Grace, I'm sorry. I should never have done business with him." Grace looked at the man who had once chosen deals over his own child. The part of her that had always wanted his approval fell very far away. "It's done," she said quietly. "I have somewhere to live. You have someone else to sue." He nodded, got back into his car, and disappeared into traffic. Catherine dusted off her hands. "Well, that was satisfying." "Munch?" Grace laughed, her real laugh this time. Then she stepped forward and hugged her mother. Catherine stiffened for half a heartbeat, then pulled her daughter close. "I missed you, Mom," Grace whispered. "I'm here now," Catherine said, "and I'm not going anywhere." 3 months later, a gallery in Chelsea buzzed with champagne, camera flashes, and the low murmur of expensive voices. On the wall hung Grace's first solo show, Rebirth. At the center was a painting called "The Gavel, a Burst of Light," shattering heavy chains in a stylized courtroom. A red soul dot sat below it, like nearly every other piece. "You did this," Grace said, standing beside her mother in a simple but stunning red dress. "No," Catherine replied, pride softening her usually sharp features. "You did. I just cleared the noise." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and smirked. 5 years, she said. "Keith?" Grace asked. "Wire fraud and embezzlement. The DA loved that crypto trail." Catherine slipped the phone away. "He'll have plenty of time to think about ROI on a prison bunk." A junior associate, Toby, hurried in and handed Grace a tablet. The balance from the liquidation of Keith's remaining assets glowed on the screen enough for a studio, a foundation, and a future without fear. "It's really over," Grace breathed. "No," Catherine said, clinking her glass against Grace's. "This is the beginning." Somewhere in a concrete cell, Keith Simmons finally understood the cost of mocking a woman he thought was powerless, especially when her mother writes laws for breakfast. He believed silence meant weakness. He forgot silence is sometimes just the moment before the hammer falls. If you enjoyed this story of justice, courage, and a mother who refused to back down, make sure to subscribe to Kindness Valley. Hit like, share it with someone who needs a reminder that quiet people are often the strongest, and stay tuned for more powerful stories where karma finally catches up.